So let's look at this. So this first row, they're just asking, is it specific or non-specific? So the first line of defense is non-specific. It's going to treat everything the same, whether it's Ebola, E. coli, or COVID. The second line of defense, I would say, is mostly non-specific, but there's a couple components that work in both. This is the specific and the non-specific. So there's a little bit of crossover, but I'll classify that as non-specific. The third line of defense is your specific adaptive immunity, right? That's our B cells, our T cells. They look at COVID and they say, you are not E. coli, and they mount a separate response. So then this is external and internal. So the first line of defense is external, surface barriers, right? Second line of defense is internal, cellular and chemical. The third line of defense is also internal. Those are our B cells and T cells, our lymphocytes. The purpose of the first line is to keep organisms from getting into your body in the first place, to create a barrier. The second line of defense is to keep organisms from becoming established, keep them from making your body their home, right? So the organisms have gotten through the first line. Now we want to keep them from sticking around. The third line of defense happens when they've already become established. They're multiplying inside of your body. So their purpose is to get rid of foreign organisms. And there's lots of different ways of saying that, right? So my words aren't necessarily the end all be all words. The body structures in each line. So the first line of defense, your barriers. So we have our skin, our cilia. Because it says body structures, I'm going to stick with that. I might also talk about acidity and mucus, membranes, enzymes, things like that. Second line of defense, as far as body structures, I think cellular, you have your phagocytes and your natural killer cells. With the inflammatory response, you have blood vessels becoming leaky. With fever, you have the brain, the hypothalamus resetting your temperature. You also have complement proteins. And the third line of defense, that is your lymphocytes, which are housed in your lymph nodes and your spleen, your Peyer's patches, tonsils, thymus gland. We talked about all of those the very first day. You might have also wrote B cells and T cells. So we're moving into the third line of defense, which is a little bit more to take in, right? Because it's at the cellular level and we want to know what the cells are doing. So before we make that transition, does anybody have any questions on this first sheet of just review? So, so we got our warm up done. We're going to go into an interactive click and learn. And then if you get done early, you can do some independent practice with a Kahoot. This has to do with our last lecture, which was acquiring immunity, whether it was whether it was natural or artificial, right? We by chance came across an infection or we forced it. And whether it was active or passive, whether we made the antibodies or they were given to us. So this Kahoot that I linked in there today has to do with that. You can work on it in your spare time at the end of the hour or later when you're reviewing for your test, whatever. Okay, so let's check out the Biointeractive at HHMI, Howard Hughes Medical Institute, their biointeractive.org website. So this is a click and learn. So with this, it's like a PowerPoint and you're just going to walk yourself through it. So you'll click launch interactive under classwork where you just were with your slides. It always goes to first hour first. Third hour. It'll take about 20 minutes or so to go through this click and learn cells of the immune system. So we're doing, you have the link here and you have the worksheet here. So you'll find these answers as you walk through the click and learn, okay? So we have launched the click and learn. So there's really only 9 content slides. So these are all the different cells that take part in our immune system. So there is a lot of them, right? We have our non-specific, our innate. We were born with these cells. So we've already talked about the basophils releasing histamine, the eosinophils, taking part in allergic responses, the monocytes, neutrophils, both becoming phagocytes. And then the specifics, the lymphocytes, the T cells and B cells, that's where we're headed next. So this is called your adaptive immunity because it's changing as you're exposed to new organisms. Okay, we have macrophages and dendritic cells that take part in both the specific and the non-specific defenses. So you will walk yourself through. Up here, there's an arrow. So as you click through these, you'll just there's some content, answer questions. There's a handful of videos to watch. They're all like a minute or less. So they're just short little clips for you to gain information from. So that's why it's interactive, because you're going to do things with your PowerPoint. Okay, so you'll work your way through that. The worksheet will take us, some of us will get done with about 10 minutes to go, and others will probably take the whole rest of our time. What questions do you have?